guys, I am back for another questioning video. I have been thinking about all these correlations between what is going on in Saudi Arabia that's been happening for so long and some of these just symbolism, I guess, of what the crude oil represents. I heard recently from an Arab that had posted a little message on Instagram about the black crude oil. Okay, here's the guy that's going to explain about petroleum, but he also talks a little bit about flat Earth and the other lands beyond the poles. This man explains where crude oil comes from and what is beyond the ice wall. So let's listen. We'll only talk from within the scientific boundaries. If we were to say that the Earth was spherical Earth has limited boundaries and continents. It's limited. But if we say that the Earth is vastly flat spread, and the boundaries we know are these continents, but are there other people than us? Yes, there are other people than humans living on this Earth. There's no such thing as a South Pole. It's the Earth's sides. After the ice lies a great gate. The countries know of it. The gate leads to a different land that has various civilizations. One of these civilizations is Gog and Magog. And for your knowledge, petroleum, the crude oil that exists in our lands, that's their rivers. For them, that's just running rivers. As it runs, it goes underground inside the earth until it reaches our lands. Petroleum isn't the remains of animals, bones, and dinosaurs, and such myths that people believe in, or the remnants of ancient plants. No, petroleum is rivers in their lands, and it runs deep underground in the earth until it reaches our lands. Is that clear? He actually disclosed that it is a river that flows beneath the ground. And when I started kind of thinking about it, making the connection, I'm like, I wonder if that is considered the River Styx. You know, the river of the underworld that the guide Charon is supposed to be leading the dead over into the underworld. I'm not sure, but I do believe all the myths and legends do have an origin in reality, not made up stories just to tell children at night. But I do believe that this may be, at least in my world, I make these connections because I believe the mythology is coming back to us, and we merely need to turn to mythology to find out the answers to some of the questions that we have. Okay, so what is the River Styx? The River Styx is a principal river in the Greek underworld, also called Hades. That's the name of the underworld. The river forms a border between the underworld and the world of the living. The word means hate in Greek and is named after the goddess Styx. She was the daughter of Oceanus and Tethys. The River Styx is not the only river in Hades. The other major rivers include Acheron, river of pain, the Lethe, river of forgetfulness, and Phlegethon, river of fire, and the Cocytus, river of wailing. Charon, the ferryman, ferries the souls of the dead across the river into the underworld, but he requires payment for his duties. He would locate his coin traditionally in the mouth of the dead. Without payment, the dead would not get into the underworld and would be left to drift on the shore for 100 years. Now, Herodotus, a Greek historian from the 5th century BC, believed the origin of the Styx to be close to Phinios, a village in ancient Greece. The village is situated at the foothills of Mount Selene, where Hermes was allegedly born. According to Dante, the river could be found in the 5th circle of hell, where vengeful sinners were drowned in its murky waters. The powers of the Styx. The gods used the River Styx to swear oaths upon. Zeus swore an oath to Semele, and since he had to adhere to it, the unfortunate outcome was her death. Similarly, Helios was responsible for the death of his own son when he swore upon the river. If a god did not stick to his oath, he would be forced to drink from the foul river and thus lose his voice for 9 years. The myth originated during the Titan War when the goddess Styx allied with Zeus. Once the war was over, Zeus declared that every oath sworn would be sworn to her. The river Styx was believed to have magical properties and could make a person invulnerable, basically invincible. Achilles was allegedly dipped into the river by his mother, making him invulnerable, but his ankle remained a weak point as he was suspended by it when dipped into the river. Achilles became a great warrior, but he eventually died when an arrow struck him in the ankle. The weak point became known as an Achilles heel. Ancient historians believe the death of Alexander the Great, the king of Macedonia, may have been the result of the poisoned water of the Styx. Modern scientific sources reveal the water may have contained a deadly bacterium. Now, here's where I would pause and I would say, you know that the crude oil that we remove from the ground, not only is it black, but it also has lead in it. And lead is the metal of Saturn. So this is actually, for me, it speaks volumes. But for people who haven't been diving deep into trying to make these different connections with what Saudi Arabia has been busy doing for so long, and that may not seem like a probability, but you have to dive into alchemy to be able to see these different connecting points about where is the truth of this world? Where are we going to find it? I believe if we dig into the past, we will find what we're looking for. So Saudi Arabia is doing very questionable things. And not only that, they're capable of manipulating the jinn to their whims. They've had this ancient knowledge for a very long time. And there's some remaining cultures that still have this knowledge. But Saudi Arabia is very close to where Egypt fell and the fall of basically Atlantis. I mean, they're not that far away and they live in a desert. And I'm questioning this because if you suppress the divine feminine aspect in your region, say, even in the United States, if you were to suppress the divine feminine, the trees and plants would eventually die because the male and female equate to the balance of mind, body, and soul. And that the first beings are spoken of to have been hermaphrodites. And then at some point, some dark faction or someone decided to split them into two. And this is why we're always seeking our other halves. So, you know, this is just more in the myths and legends of old about this kind of information. So the real River Styx in Italy, a river which runs partly underground called the Alpheus River, is viewed as a possible portal to the underworld where mortals can enter. Couples who consider the river to be the River Styx throw rings into its waters to appease the gods of marriage. Another possible variant of the Styx, according to Hesiod's Theogony, is the Mavro Neri, a stream in Arcadia, Greece. The name of the stream means black water. See, and here we go with the black water. Black, symbolism, black is Saturn. The ancient Greeks believed that the water in the river was poisonous. Again, why? Because lead is poisonous. They believed that if someone tried to carry its water in anything other than a container made of horse's hoof, the container would dissolve. In the land of the living, there may not be a river of hate, fire, or pain flowing through our backyard, but the various religions and cultures of the world, like that of the ancient Greeks, have long engaged in a plethora of curious burial rites of the dead. These include practices such as burying the corpse with money, jewels, food, or the Book of the Dead, not burying someone in the clothes of a living person, lest the person rot as the corpse does, pulling out the nails of the dead, and even tying a camel to the grave of a recently deceased person. Now, those are all strange, but getting back to this belief of it's being black and poisonous still seems like a very good correlation to what we call crude oil. And the fact that the Arabs have been pumping it out of the ground in their lands more than we do ours now for so long really, to me, begins to scream volumes, because they are not only poisoning our atmosphere, but they're poisoning the lands, and we are co-creating this malady that we're bringing upon the earth by being so blind to acknowledge all of these ancient tales that have been out here from wise people to let us know about the unseen forces and the hidden things in this realm. Because of our material world and the perspectives that we've been born in, we don't believe these ancient tales. We think that these are just fantasies to tell children. All of these incredible stories about different beings and titans and all of these things. But, the evidence is becoming clear every day that there have been other civilizations that were here, and quite possibly even larger than life beings. So we know about the giants, and we know that their bones and their story is being hidden from us. I do feel, from my own perspective, that these giants helped us in many, many ways, but they could also be some of our gods who made us from the alchemy that is quite possible to do so. So in alchemy, Paracelsus and others were also able to create diminutive beings. This includes human-type beings and other animals and things. They were experimenting with life at its deepest core. And this is where we are in science today, where they're manipulating DNA to create other beings and to manipulate our food to where we cannot breed anymore. They're obviously terraforming this place by design, poisoning the air, land, water, getting us to co-poison the land, air, water, getting us to co-destroy everything in existence. And for whom are we doing this for? And again, I question all of these actions, because when you put it all together and you look at it as a whole, because that's really what's going on, is that we can only see fragmented pieces from our one perspective that we engage with on a daily basis. But if you actually take the time to sit and you go over all the different events that happen worldwide on a continual basis, and then you begin to question what all of these events actually entail. What is the purpose? What is the end goal? Because humans cannot live in a world that is managed by garbage, like an overabundance of trash that's destroying different habitats, that's making mountains in one specific spot, all of the plastics that are being dumped into the oceans, along with all of the fuel, all of these poisons, poisoning literally everything in our existence. We will not be able to survive. But who can survive? Well, let's think about this. Robots can survive. Cyborgs can survive because they will have synthetic life. They will have soulless life. And this is exactly what Saudi Arabia has created over in their lands, is granting and giving a designation of female to a robot, which is not female, obviously, but they made it look like a female when they don't honor their own women over there. And they have granted her carte blanche to do as she wishes in creating other robots. And people can go and look these different little factoids up in regards to Sophia, and how Sophia was actually a goddess of the earth named Mother Gaia. Gaia Sophia was in the Nag Hammadi text. So here is, now this is on the Gaia channel, but the world's soul is a woman, the Gnostic myth of Sophia, or Sophia. It was known as Goddess Sophia, but have you ever heard of Gnosis, or the Gnostics of old, often associated with the early Christianity? I know you've heard of Mother Earth, since we're all riding around on her all the time, or Mother Nature, or Gaia. whom we all love to visit on holidays. We tend to bring her all of our problems, and she can always make them go away for a little while. So why is it that we have this understanding of the benevolent feminine nature of the world, but we don't seem to let it shape our reality the way it could? Is it that we simply don't know any better? I don't think so. We've always known better. So you guys can go and look at this, and this talks a little bit about Gnosticism, and it isn't a religion, but rather a way of being in the world. So it's a way of working in balance with all things of nature. No matter how far we get with our technology and our advancement of this technology in mind, we need to always consider that it needs to be in balance with all things, not just the way it's going right now, which is getting very dystopian, and man is trying to recreate nature, which doesn't quite work. So we've been given the keys to the kingdom in such a way that we are mistreating the kingdom because we're trying to advance our technology without actually balancing our spiritual knowledge. So this creates a problem. And, you know, how is it that the Saudis can't see this? Because obviously they do have wise men there. And they know, I'm going to say this from my standpoint and my perspective based on my research, they know absolutely what they are doing. And, you know, all of this other information about how they treat children, how they treat women. They put their women in black, the men wear white. This is the yin and yang again, it's the energy that they imbibe. But the desert plains, keeping their lands a desert plain, not trying to create more forests and things of this nature. They just have a lot of things that I think the rest of the world, we really need to be questioning what their true intentions are with everything they're doing, you know, with the city called Neom, Neom, like Neo in the Matrix, and the line being the line in the sand, in the proverbial sand, so to speak, for the future of humanity to do battle with artificial intelligence. Now, all of their cities are going to be operated solely on artificial intelligence. This is their goal. And for them to be creating a city in a straight line from east to west is also symbolic of from the light to the dark. And it's going to be a mirror, so it's going to obviously cook things that try to approach during the day. And, you know, this is very questionable. I mean, why would you create a mirrored walled city in the sand of the desert, the hottest desert in the world? It's because they have future plans. Now, this could be all speculation, but it is based on all of my research, this is my perspective. And because they consider themselves the last king of the dome, this is another reason. It's like there's nobody else on the lands that consider themselves king. Now, if you're familiar with the video I Pet Goat, if you recall the narrative, or at least the symbolic meaning in I Pet Goat, of course, Putin and Trump are depicted fighting on top of China's roof. And throughout this video, you will see the black flag of Islam that comes about. Now, they show it at the beginning, but they have this instance in the middle of the film where people are actually kneeling. They're going to be bowing their heads because they're going to convince a lot of people to convert to Islam, which they're going to call it a new religion. And the new religion is going to be Baha'i faith. And as you can see, it was written here that Muhammad is the messenger of God. So somehow they're going to convince more people to turn towards this religion. And I'm kind of thinking that they may declare Jesus as an alien. This might be the narrative for the alien God presence, for people to start embracing this notion that Jesus was an alien, so that, you know, more people will believe that he came from outer space and that somehow because Jesus was in the Middle East, that, you know, it's tied to all of this. So as you can see here, it's the Gospel of Barnabas. They're going to pretend, obviously, at least by this narrative, that they find new evidence of more story for all of these religions that have been upon the earth for so long. They have to merge and have one world religion somehow. And so there's obviously going to be some sort of ploy involved where they connect all of them into one, because they want one world government, one world religion, and they want to be able to control the masses through all of this. Now, I've kind of gone over some of this symbolism in one of my other videos in the past. It's been a couple of years now, at least. And we see here the Aquarian man. So the Aquarian man is a man of the future, and he has special powers. He's definitely futuristic, and he fights a lot of this evil. So he shoots down the eagle, which is always representing the United States of America, and he's going to overthrow what we know as government. Our governments are going to merge, whether we like it or not. It's preordained in the stars. This is the thing to know, is that we do not control time, Saturn does. And since this is Saturn's rule here during this time, Saturn gets to play out his favorite parts. And it's going to be darkness that rules, but at the same time that you can't have more darkness than light. So it's going to be equal and balanced. But in some parts of the world, you're going to see this division between the people who just want to be in an agrarian society and working on their metaphysical abilities versus the digital world of industrialized nations. So that's pretty much how it's going. There's still a lot of countries that do not have internet. They do not have the capabilities that we do. So it's not like this thing can take over completely. And that's the promise and hope of the future. And so here we have the Aquarian man cutting off the head of the golden calf from the age of Taurus. This has been one of the idols of worship, not only for Moloch, the black sun, but for Baal, the golden sun, the sun of the sky, the sun of the heavens that we see every day, that brings the light upon the earth. So Moloch is the other antithesis to this bull. So he slays the head off the golden calf, and then the farmers, the small people, all of the average people of the world are going to be left and given a moment in time to rule, I believe. I believe that we're going to be allowed to have some sense or semblance of freedom before the oligarch platform of artificial intelligence with robots everywhere begins to take over and control our society. That will be more towards the middle and end of the age. Now it's creeping in right now. They have to plant the seeds for the future. And of course, as we go around the great wheel of time throughout the age of Aquarius, there's sine waves of push and pull. And this is the light and the dark. It's just like a tug of war eternally, where the light and the dark are constantly pulling and vying for position. And there's always going to be solutions to every problem. This is what you can learn just by looking into alchemy and looking into the yin and yang. If you study it long enough, you realize that there's always a solution to every problem. We just have to be the ones to seek it out. And I can see how all of this adversity is really just truly honing our soul, just like a sword through the fire. When you put the sword in the fire, it heats up, and then you strike it in order to sharpen it, and then you cool it in the waters, and then you heat it some more, and you strike it some more, and you cool it. And it's just that. That's all we're doing with this experience, that we keep coming in, leaving, coming back, then we leave again, and we come back. And the whole goal and notion is to obtain a certain amount of enlightenment to where either we don't have to incarnate, or we choose to remain incarnated through gnosis or knowledge or enlightenment. This is what I've been finding. I mean, it seems to be like a choice. Once you get to a certain point, just as Tehuti did, at least in the version of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, that's kind of like a narrative where he's describing that eventually he was living for thousands of years, and eventually he gained enough enlightenment to be able to choose not to die, or to choose when to die. And he had to stand before death, and which is considered the Dark Lord, and he's blacker than the blackest black you've ever seen, apparently, as it's been described. But he has the power to release your soul from the incarnation cycle. And this sounds probable to me, because when you find out that all of these different planets and all of the different things around us are just at a certain level of consciousness, because it's made with consciousness, then it's very probable in my world that there are higher consciousnesses that obviously not only created us, but they also created all things around us. And that since it's interwoven into the fabric of this reality, that they could actually release you from this reality. Or you choose your path, you choose your work, because all men must toil. This is what it states in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, that all men must toil. And you choose what you want to do. And Tehuti chose to be a teacher, a purveyor of knowledge, a scribe. Since he had learned so many things, he decided to lead the ones to the light, to try to get them to just find that inner light themselves, to find on the inside. Just follow the light always. Don't turn to the dark side, because it's a limited road. You can go down deep into the darkness, but it will inhibit your growth into the light, which is a forever path to walk upon. So that's, I find these things very fascinating. And again, Isis Ra El depicts in their flag the 4 elements of alchemy. You have the divine feminine, downward pointing triangle with the upward pointing triangle, and that's the fire principle. We have water principle, which is divine feminine. Then we have masculine with the fire principle. It's a male energy, and it's pyramid shape. So these are the keys to the tetragrammaton. This is what one tiny aspect of a molecule of the tetragrammaton actually looks like. And these spin and rotate in many different directions, different patterns they create in order to create what we call matter, or mother. And this is where it all begins. And this is considered the God particle, basically. So what they're selling as a story with CERN is just a story that they're trying to find the God particle. They're trying to open up portals and gateways to the underworld. This has been stated before, that they don't know what they might bring in, and they don't know what they might send through. So we've heard strange tales involving CERN and the experiments that they've been doing. They've had rituals inside CERN, outside CERN, and the dance of destruction of Shiva is obviously one of their gods. So they're showing us that they represent the destructive force. Now, as we know, there's also a creative force, but this is not the time for the creative force to truly be worshipped. And it could be that this energy of Saturn that they're using, that they're harnessing through all the shapes, lines, frequencies, colors, everything that they're bringing in, is attributed to a pattern of death and destruction. And Saturn is the Grim Reaper. He is the Lord of Death. And that's their god. The Israelite god is El, E-L, which is Saturn, or also better known in the Bible as Satan. And people don't know this, but we need to, hopefully help people see this more, because it's going to be just important for people to kind of grasp, instead of fear-based, reality of them thinking certain things, just have them grasp the notion that, hey, Satan is actually Saturn, and Lord Saturn is always going to be depicted with a capital Lord, which is also found in the Bible. And when anything is capitalized, it is considered speaking about death and dead things, because this is what you find as a designation for dead people in a cemetery. So your all capital names that's on your bills, your driver's license, your paycheck stubs, all your things to do with anything in this corporate or corpse oration world that they've created is actually associated and attributed to things that are dead, because your Sestacue trust, which is connected to your birth certificate, is actually connected to your afterbirth, not your living being. This is a lot of information, but now when you grasp that all things are connected in this manner, and that all around us, we're all co-creating this Saturnian energy through our cube-shaped homes, our cube-shaped technologies we're employing on a daily basis, anything black, anything cube-shaped, cars, homes, buildings, commercial buildings especially, all these things are sacred geometry. And that sacred geometry, when you learn about radionic fields of energy, when you just draw a square on a 2D piece of paper, it actually resonates with a 3D field of light energy. So when you create an actual cube shape, you're even amplifying that energy more. And if you recognize the buildings of old, the ones that they call Tartaria, the ones that they call Atlantis, the ones that they call Greco-Roman, it's not Greco-Roman. I mean, I would say that it's more attributed to the Greeks than the Romans, but those buildings were built using the sacred knowledge of radionic fields of frequencies and light energy. So the shapes that they were built with were harnessing the powers of the ether combined with the 4 elements of alchemy, and in the patterns of the numbers of the windows and the different columns, the different outcroppings, all of the details were actually thought about in their construction, so that it was considered that it had to be bringing in a very beneficial and high frequency energy. And that was the intention. And those buildings exist literally everywhere among this plane. They can be found throughout every state in the United States. They can be found in Japan. They can be found over in Iceland and Switzerland and Belgium and, all these other places around the world. They have some of these old buildings. They couldn't destroy them all. There was too many, because it was a worldwide civilization. And form follows function. This is why I say the buildings that they're creating today are following the function of creating that earth-bound material energy of a cube. And it's tied and associated to Metatron's cube. But this is something that you cannot escape. It's a part of our world, because the Tetragrammaton is a part of our world. The Tetragrammaton is our world. It's the fabric of our world, that when you overlay the flower of life with a Tetragrammaton, you then see all the connecting points. It's just that the flower of life shows you all of the sine waves that are there that create the fabric of our physical reality. It's all basically still a holographic dream. It's just that Saturn co-creates this existence and this reality to slow it all down. He is the Dark Lord, the Lord of the underworld. He is beneath the ground and above the ground, creating the shadow effect that we see. Because if we didn't have the shadow effect, we wouldn't have this slowed down, dense holographic reality to learn in time these lessons. Because when you're out of your body, you can think a thought and instantly be there. And it's not enough to truly grasp the meaning of what it means to be alive. So we should never fear death. We should never fear this world or these symbols or the knowledge behind any of this stuff, because that's where your creation stops. When you begin to open your mind to all of these possibilities, you become childlike again. And you just start becoming like a sponge and you learn more, and the acceleration of your learning becomes huge, and you just expand exponentially into true and pure knowledge of our existence and why we're here. So I encourage more people to go and look into this, because it is fascinating just to learn and to know some of these things. So what we have here is, again, the 4 elements of alchemy depicted in a flag. And obviously someone wants to be the purveyor of all knowledge. This is why they're waving it in our faces. But notice that the flag is black. This speaks a language. The blacked out flag of any kind, even the American flag that's been blacked out with the blue line and blacked out with the red line, seemingly for not only military applications, but for the police and the fire department. These are telling us a story that the United States of America is dead, and it's been overtaken by pirates, and they have captured the flag and they're reclaiming it for themselves. This is why it's a different color. The American flag was never those colors. You must understand this, that this is very important symbolism, and they are telling us everything. But we, as a collective, have not had eyes to see and to speak the language of symbols for so long. So I try to help people with this because I've been learning a lot. I just want to share all of my findings. And hey, I may be completely wrong, but somehow in my gnosis, in my inner wisdom, all of these dots connect, and I have made sense in my own head, and I just want to share all of its meaning with everyone else. Now, I'm not going to toot my own horn. I'm not, an all-knowing, all-seeing being, but in the character traits that I imbibe, apparently Aquarians are visionaries. And maybe this is because I've been a seeress in a past life, but also, just talking about this stuff, how it just hits me strongly on the inside. It's almost like a brick clicks into place in all of the gnosis of the things that I find just from being so curious. And I can just start sewing the patterns together for other people to consider. Now, all of this may change in the future, but what it does is it makes sense to me right now of what's been done to us in the past. To link all of this information together, you don't need all the confusion that they try to imbibe your mind with all the historical events and historical dates. All of that stuff, to me, is part of a story. And so what we need to do is just go within, which is what I do, and I question the story, because I feel like that's where the answers are going to come from. Okay, so continuing the IPEC Go 2 video, just a little bit more evidence about how somebody knows what the timeline represents, because apparently someone can either peer into the future and the past, like the chronoscope chronovisor machines, and there's different technologies that we're not aware of. We think that these things are possible, but this technology is very old. It was part of Atlantis. It's part of the old world. They had higher technology. They had higher knowledge. All of these things. We are not the highest of the highest in evolution of anything. So there are other beings who can live forever, and they don't have to make themselves known to us. We are on our own paths of self-discovery, pretty much. And only when you truly look into what these alchemists of old were into will you know some of these things were actually true. And some of them leave behind the formulas of this information on how to create different things, gold from lead or whatever. I mean, it's creating diminutive humans, creating other beings, creating other things, creating an elixir of life. These things are real. And it's because we haven't been studying the foundations of our reality, because we haven't been curious enough, and we've just been indoctrinated to follow whatever story's out here. That's what's spinning right now as a narrative, is for everybody to grab onto something, grab onto some kind of chaos, because there's plenty for people to just go and latch on to some belief or something, some story, narrative, whatever that anybody's spinning out here for others to get lost with. And for myself, I like deep diving into what this reality is actually about and what are some of the possibilities in this reality. And that's where I come up with all this stuff. People think that, oh, you're trying to be all knowing. No, it's not about my ego. It's about my mind that wants to know things. I'm very curious. And most people love to judge someone else for what they do. It doesn't make any sense to me, but people do it. And I'm like, you know what? Y'all just go do your thing. I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to share what my findings are. So obviously someone who made this video was obviously someone who was in the know about the timelines that we venture through and about this particular timeline. So they made a video in regards to it about the predictions that are to come because of the age of Aquarius that is rising all around us right now, and the Saturnian influence during this rule of Saturn in the age of Aquarius. So here we go. We're just going to play this little video. Now they have the white doves. They are circling counterclockwise. Very interesting, because this is kind of what the constellations do over our head. They circle counterclockwise, not clockwise, because if you were up above them, you would see that they're circling clockwise. So that just gives you a little notion about the consciousness that could potentially be over our heads watching as the world turns. Now, here we go. As you will see, this is in Mecca. They do this journey to go and circle the black cube. And while they're circling, they're basically bringing in the energy of Saturn, because that's what a black cube represents. And also the black stone that is inside this thing. Obviously, maybe it's a chunk of the underworld that they brought on top of the world and labeled it an asteroid or a meteorite or something like this. But it's Saturnian either way, because it's black and it's smooth, polished. Who knows what it is? But yeah, these people are basically worshiping Saturn. They might not know, they may know, some of them, and some of them may not, that they're contributing to this ritual of honoring Saturn. Now it just goes and it keeps spinning. And there's the doves that are circling overhead because they're going to bring peace to the world. Now, very important to note where this little location is, of course, on a map. Most people may not know where Mecca is, but when you go on a map, you can kind of see some things. We have Saudi Arabia. Here we go. So there's Mecca, and this is going to be the main hub for their world city, I guess. It's going to be like the main hub for the capital of the world or something like that. And apparently they're going to be bringing peace on earth, because we're supposed to have peace for 1,000 years. This has already been established. It's written in the stars, guys. And these people who have been doing all of this stuff, they have their mosques. Guess what a mosque is? When you see these towers that go up in the sky like this, when you have this very high tower, guess what that is? It's a wizard tower, aka an astrologer's tower, so that they can look at the heavenly stars. And when you make it really tall like this, you can harness the alchemy of fire and air combined with the ether. That's why it's that tall. This is why the pyramids are so tall. They're harnessing the ether, and especially the buildings. The buildings with any kind of spires, or if you see like the little metal antennas coming off the top, they're harnessing the ether. They're touching the fire and air principle, and it resonates with the ether in all of the shapes that are comprised of the building designs. So all of this is resonating with frequencies. And see how you'll have these windows. Now, this is duality. When you have two, you have duality. It's usually male and female. But if you have four, this is alchemy. This is the four elements. And then if you have three, this is the Holy Trinity. And then here's the duality, the male, female, and the Holy Trinity, because you have a mother, you have a father, and you have a child, basically. And this is the Holy Spirit that's connected to all of them, which is considered the ether. Now, the Holy Trinity in the front of the building, three large doorways, three large openings, three windows. This little dome at the top is actually feminine and represents a womb. This is going to create more energy, but it's also the oneness, the wholeness, the egg, the womb, the mother, the matter, all of these things. This is creating energy just in its structure, just like the ones in Tartaria, the ones that are of Atlantis, which are called Greco-Roman. All of these buildings are creating with their structures. That's why this cube is creating and harnessing an energy. And it's the base form. This is like equating to the root chakra. This is the material world. This is time and space in the cube, because you can't, if you're outside of your body, you don't have time and space. You just have mind, and it's liquid, it's fluid, it moves throughout all space and time. You can think a thought and you can be in the ancient past, or you can be in the future, or you can do all these things. But this is what we can do when we begin to meditate and connect with our higher self, our higher spirit, the other part of us that's connected to all things. This is why it's important to meditate right now, to try to just focus on no thoughts. Because if you can silence your mind, then you can connect to the oneness that's within your soul. So, that these are just things that I've learned on my path, and I just want to share all this stuff, because this is how to know yourself fully, and also to know that we are co-creating this reality together. And we have to become more aware and more responsible for the kinds of energies that we wish to see, because they're obviously worshiping the Dark Lord. That doesn't mean that we have to as well. What we can do is we can go out here and start making buildings of different forms and harnessing and using this, because that's what all those buildings are doing that are made with stone. Any stone building is going to be resonating with a more beneficial frequency for life. This is very important to know. Now, obviously, what you can do with lime is you can make it turn into a slurry of stone. So you can, rub this on the outside of buildings. It'll harden and collect. I'm sure that they were making things in this manner, but also, taking stones straight out of the earth, they were using another composite material to create a lot of this stuff. And the giants were quite possibly helping us, because these things are enormous. And so if you can imagine a person who was as tall as this building, or even half the size, it would be very easy for them to make this building. And, like in the Egyptian hieroglyphs, it shows you that there were beings that were bigger than us. We're probably the little ones, and they're probably the big ones. And they're probably twice our height, if not even higher than us. So this is just another tale. I mean, you have huge beings who are described as building with some of these stone structures. And then you have the tiny little people. So he could lift those blocks very easily, just to stack them all up. Boom, there you go. There's your place that you want. And I'm kind of in on this narrative, Yes, they probably had levitation abilities, but at the same time, a giant could make this very easily. We just don't see it that way, because we've never known giants. I believe that they're still somewhere found in this reality, and that they're hiding out until we can reach a certain point in our evolution of mind, because we've been wiped out of the memories of them, and We've been in this warring state of mind against each other and all things and all life on Earth. I wouldn't want to interact with us or even attempt to make contact with the types of mentality that is out here right now. So when we calm down and we get to know that we are all one and we become more benevolent towards each other, I believe they'll step back into the world stage, and they could quite possibly be some of these people that are flying around in UFOs. I think that's part of the narrative. But, you know, as in all things, that's just me and my take on it, because I don't exclude anything. I'm inclusive, not exclusive. So I just want to share the different findings that I have, because I feel like some of this stuff is important just to kind of grab on to the knowledge of it. So I just wanted to share that little tidbit about the River Styx and how it seems to correlate with, you know, what they're doing over in Saudi Arabia, and how Saudi Arabia is basically about to become king of the world in not so many words, I guess. And that, you know, that's all part of Asia over there, like all those countries together. This could be why China's going to rule the world. I believe that it's also part of just the timelines, that each king gets to have a reign, a rulership during the different ages that come about. I believe this is what they can do, is like they just all agree that, hey, look, we've got to go ahead and destroy what was here. It's time to move on. The souls aren't going to learn if they don't move forward in time and progress towards these changes. And, you know, I could see how being stuck in one place may be very limiting for our minds and our spiritual growth. So I know it's hard out here in the 3D realm, but that's part of the whole undertaking of education and growth of the spirit. But this realm is basically a war zone, and it continues throughout every age, every epoch, every timeline. There's always a war, and we are in the center of it. We're the bullseye, which is where all of our land masses are, apparently. It's like we're the bullseye, we're the target. So, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.